Hello, everyone, and welcome to Finding Test Measurements and Scales. And we're going to talk about how to locate resources with interviews, questionnaires, and scales, mostly in the health and social sciences. I'm going to review and demo HAPPY, psyctests, mental measurements, yearbook with test and print, and the Educational Testing Service Library. I think it's also called ETS Link. I also want to say a little bit about a couple of general databases like ProQuest, Dissertation and Theses Global, and Dragon Search, our discovery tool, to help you locate the full text of scales and tests in case they're not in the instrument database. And then throughout the discussion, I'll talk about copyright considerations for using these instruments. If you have questions at any time, if you want to share your expertise in this area, please feel free to just, turn your mic on and jump right in. And also don't wait until the end of this to ask any questions that you might have. So first of all, how do you get started finding these instruments? Well, researchers often start with a literature search in a database. You can use a keyword or a subject heading for your topic of interest. If you're searching the literature and you're looking at books as well as journals, you might want to think about adding synonyms for instruments as part of your search. Things like assessment, measurement, scales, tests, because a lot of times that will show up in the title of the book or book chapter or the abstract. And then once you find the name of a relevant instrument, the next step is to try to find some reviews and full text of the test or instrument. Now, some resources like psyctests may provide all that information in the same resource, which is great, but often it takes multiple steps and resources to find, assess, or locate the full text of your instrument. This process may also involve contacting the publisher or whoever might hold copyright, and sometimes that's the instrument author. By way of example, I'm going to be doing a research topic on disordered eating among female college athletes. So I'll start off by searching for a few instruments to identify eating disorders. And then once I locate the names of those tests, I want to try to collect basic information to find instruments that relate as closely to my population as I can, and that are also considered reliable and validated. So what's that mean? Well, validated tests have been confirmed to measure what they claim to measure. So here are some examples of the different types of validity that you might see in these records, and I'm not going to go into the definition of what they mean. On the other hand, reliability measures the same thing every time. So for example, if you have an exam and the person takes it more than once, the responses should be consistent when repeated. And these are different types of reliability tests. And I believe that there are actually statistical tests to measure reliability as opposed to validity, but I'm about to get myself into trouble now, so I'll just stop there. Test types include tests that are published and unpublished tests. Published tests are commercially available for purchase. They can be expensive. So purchasing the test, though, typically will give you copyright permissions to use the test and testing materials, typically a manual for administering tests. And in some cases, only select individuals who are qualified or professionally trained can purchase those copies. Unpublished tests, on the other hand, are non-commercial tests, and they can be found in scholarly journal articles and books, as well as different places on the internet, like repositories, maybe professional organizations or consulting agencies. Sometimes government agency websites as well. But you may need to contact the author or copyright holder in order to request permission to use them. Now, I'm probably going to say this more than once, but it bears repeating. Even if you find the instrument in an article or a dissertation appendices, unless otherwise stated, you still have to seek permission and then get that permission granted before you use it. So it's a good idea when you're searching for instruments to try to locate more than one, if possible, for your research, just in case your instrument of choice, they don't grant you permission to use that. It's also possible to develop your own instruments or tests, but this is a really time-consuming, multi-step process. It requires training and experience to do that well. So I'm not going to cover resources for instrument design in this webinar, but if you're interested in finding resources for test design, you can contact me or you consult with your subject librarian. I've divided this demonstration between resources that contain the full text, or mostly psyctests, and resources that don't. And I'm apologizing in advance because I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between the live demo and to the slides to try to give you a description of the database and show you how you would navigate that database as well. So let me start with psyctests. Psyctests provides copies of thousands of tests derived from scholarly journal articles and the like. The full text of the test is included in about 70% of the records. Now, unless you're sure which search terms to use, I typically start broad in most of these instrument databases and then refine my search using keywords or filters. And remember, I'm looking for information about college female athletes that have eating disorders, but I'm going to do a very simple search and just search for eating and disordered. So let me hop over to the database. This is the library website, and it's going to be the jumping off point for most of the instruments that I demonstrate, because these are instruments, databases that we subscribe to. If you go to databases A to Z, this link here, this is a list of hundreds of databases that we subscribe to or have access to. To speed this up a little bit, I'll just click on P for psyctests and scroll down. And it will give you a very brief description. So here it tells us that it indexes psychological measures, scales, surveys, and other instruments used for research across the behavioral sciences. So I am going to do the search I mentioned earlier on eating and disordered. I think I'm going to put an asterisk there, so I'll get eating disorders as well as disordered eating. Let's click on search, see what happens. Ooh. I got quite a few results here. So we can scroll through and see what types of tests. Now remember, this is a database of tests in the actual full text of the instruments most of the time. So these are going to be links that will eventually take us to the test in most cases. I'm going to change or check my page options to see what view I have. Right now, this is the brief view. I usually like to look at the most detailed view in my results. I'm going to change this to detailed. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference, but it does give me purpose. So for each one of these records, it will give you the full name of the resource or the instrument, as well as the acronym. This acronym is really important because often when you're searching for instruments, they'll list the information by the acronym. Think about GRE, okay? I don't think most people call it the graduate record exam. They just call it GRE, and that's often how you'll find the information. So if you're searching for the title of an instrument, search for its popular title, its acronym, and its official title. Along with that information, it will tell you the author of the instrument, its construct, so what it's measuring, and its purpose. And they often provide subject headings as well. Because I have so many records here, I'm going to try filtering this a bit to see if I could find something that's a little bit more relevant for my research topic. I'm just going to scroll down if my mouse will cooperate, and I'll click on show more. That's going to allow me to see more filters, even though quite a few of them are listed here in the left column. Psyctests gives you many options for filtering. You can see I can filter by test year, acronym, the type of test, whether it's something that's a translation or the original, test methodology. Because I'm interested in female athletes, I'm going to choose female here. I also want to get a test that I don't have to pay for, as many graduate students do. So I'm going to click on where it says fee. I'm going to say, no, please do not charge me. And let's say we'll do English. Oh, and this is an important one to me. Under permissions, they give me the option that I can use it for research and teaching. So let me select that. But you can see there are also a number of other options here, like supporting documentation and so on. But I think that's all I'm going to select for this search, and I'll click on search now and see what I get. That narrowed my results down quite a bit. And I'm left with 92. Let me scroll through here and see what I have. You know, I thought I selected English, but I see there are a number of other languages as well. Now, this one looks like it might be of interest to me, this eating disorder screening for athletes. When I look at the purpose, it's a brief screening tool to identify male and female athletes at risk for eating disorders. So this looks like this might be on point. If I want to look at a more detailed display, I can click on the link to the resource. And this is going to give me a lot of important information without even viewing the test itself. So there's a more detailed description, the year, the test, and author. This may be important to me, this email address, in case it was a record that didn't have the full instrument attached. I could reach out to the authors at either one of these addresses. It tells me the type of instrument. And note that there is no fee, and I can use this for research and teaching. And it does give me information about validity and reliability measures. If for some reason, again, I didn't have the full text of the instrument, this is the source citation. So I may be able to check our library website, drag and search to see if this is a journal that we have and if we have that particular issue. Now to see the instrument itself, just click on the PDF. All of these records, when they include the full instrument, will give you a little cover sheet. Hopefully this will come up in a moment. Here we go. A lot of this information is a duplicate of what you saw on the detailed record that we were just looking at. But it does say a little bit more in the permission section. So it confirms that we can use it for non-commercial purposes for research and education, but we can only distribute that to people who are participating in the research or education, which sort of makes sense. And then it specifies that any other type of reproduction that's not authorized, we've got to get written permission for that and information about attribution and whatnot. If I scroll down far enough, I will see the test itself and scoring. Again, this is a non-commercial test, so it's not going to provide me with the manual and some of the more fancy documentation that comes with it. So that is a quick overview of psyctests. Are there questions about that specific instrument? We'll pop back to the results list here. Okay. If there aren't questions about that, I'm going to go to the next instrument, which is Incremental Measurements Yearbook with Tests in Print. And this doesn't really contain the full text of the instrument, but it does have the full text of reviews. For those of you who have been around for a minute, you may remember Incremental Measurements Yearbook and also Tests in Print, and that was in print volumes. We still have them here at Hahnemann, but this is an electronic version. It contains more than 10,000 reviews, and it goes back from 1938 to the present. So there's a lot of information in this resource. And it contains descriptive information for each test, including the test purpose, the target population, scoring, and pricing. So I'm going to go to that test, or that database, excuse me. Close this out. Again, A to Z, and we'll go to M for mental measurements. I think I scrolled past it. There it is. Now I'm going to switch to the advanced search view, just because it gives me a few more options. For example, I could conduct a search and target certain fields for my search. And that's really important if I'm doing a search where I think I'm going to get either a lot of results or I want to do a search that's a little bit more precise. In this case, rather than looking for a search by topic, I'm going to try looking for a specific test. So we'll look for the eating disorder inventory, also known as EDI. And if I were only looking for EDI, I could restrict my search to the acronym field. I could look at the test name field if I was just looking for eating disorder inventory without the acronym. I'm going to look in all text fields. And I get a couple of different versions of the eating disorder inventory. And these came from various volumes of the Mental Measurements Yearbook as indicated here. There are 3 versions. I think that's the most current one. So I'm going to check this one out. This is going to provide me with a little bit of information about the test, including, the acronym, but also how much this is going to cost, what's the population, are there any other subtests within the test, and a little more detailed description of it. And if I keep scrolling, this is where I see the test reviews. Typically written by experts in the field. So this is great, but it doesn't give me the test. So how would I get the test? I could either go back to a resource that is likely to have the tests, like psyctests. I could try Googling it, but notice that under publisher information, they give me a website. So I'm going to try going to the publisher site, and then I can just search for the test. And remember, this is commercial tests. So it gives me information for purchasing the manual in either English or Spanish. And then details about the test, and of course, pricing, if I want to purchase it. I don't see anything offhand specifying who can purchase this and who cannot. So there may not be restrictions, but perhaps that information is under details. So let's go back to this database. Let me see if this is everything I wanted to say about this resource. Any questions about mental measurement yearbook with tests in print? And just remember, there are reviews typically, but not necessarily the test, although it could contain an article that has the test. If there aren't questions about it, let me hop over to Happy. I have a wayward mouse, I'm sorry. Okay, so Happy has information abstracted from journals, technical reports, and other resources. The difference, or a major difference, between Happy and Mental Measurements Yearbook is that it has fuller coverage of the health sciences, including nursing and medicine. Happy doesn't offer access to test instruments themselves, but it includes the citations to freestanding instruments, and also reliability and validity information and whether or not that's included. So let's go to Happy. If these databases all look the same, it's because up until now, they've all been EBSCO databases. So the user interface looks the same, but the content within it is different, and the searching options are different. I'm going to look for the eating disorder diagnoses test, also called EDD. I think it is. That looks about right. And this is going to give me articles about this particular questionnaire. Don't be surprised if you see multiple entries for the same test, because this information may be coming from different articles. Now, there are a couple ways that you can filter. If you're interested in trying to find the test, even though the Happy database doesn't include copies of the test, the articles that are indexed may. So if you're interested in trying to find the test within Happy, it might be helpful to limit it to the primary source. Those are either written by the test author, or they may contain the test. If I click on show more here, here's the primary source. I would expect when I use that limit to have fewer articles, and I do. This first one here looks like it is a likely candidate for containing information, not just about the test, but the test itself. Let's see. Okay, A lot of info in the abstract, but let me look at the PDF. So this is actually, let's see, it looks like they talk about how the test was designed, and they have some sample information about the test, but this is not the complete test itself. So I'm going to go back to the result list. The other option that you have, besides looking at the rest of these resources, is to find information about the test by authors who didn't originally write the test. That would be your secondary source. You click on secondary source here. So I have quite a few more articles, and I may want to limit this to articles about athletes. I'll put a little asterisk there, maybe that is not spelled right, Janice. Okay, that's better. This gives me 2 articles about this specific questionnaire, but one of them looks at eating disorders among male collegiate athletes. I'm a lot more interested in females in this case, so this is probably an example that I would look at. In this case, it covers the validation of another questionnaire, the athlete questionnaire, it looks like, using the QEDD. So again, this is great, but what if I want to actually see the test? So the options that I have are looking for this test, again, in something like psyctests, or Google. But I have a lot of luck finding instruments in ProQuest dissertations and theses, because students or doctoral students will often include an instrument in the appendices of their dissertation. So I'm going to bring this up. I conveniently included a link to that resource here. And when I'm looking for instruments in the appendices in this resource, I usually will check the abstract. They're not likely to show up in the title unless for some reason it's about a specific instrument. But if they use the instrument, they usually include it in the abstract. So I'm just going to jump to advanced search real quick and put in QEED, or QEDD, I think it is. And we'll look in the abstract. Okay, I have 12 results, and I checked this right before this webinar, so you didn't have to sit through me looking for it, but I believe it is, let's see, it is in this dissertation. So typically what I do is just open up a dissertation if I think there's a likelihood of the test being there, and then check the table of contents to see if it lists it. So if we look in the PDF and then just sort of scroll down to the table of contents, let's see. Under the appendix, it's got questionnaire, and this is the instrument that I'm looking for on page 53. But we want to bump that number up a bit to incorporate the Roman numerals in it. So let's say like 60. And so here is my instrument listed below. I did not look closely to see if this scaling was also included, but whether it is or it is not, remember, you can't just use this, okay? It's good to be able to see the actual test, but if you thought you might want to use this test, you need to get permission. And you can try to contact the publisher or the author. You can try Googling them if need be to find out their contact information, or go back to one of the resources we looked at earlier. Questions about this? Okay, so we're short on time, so the last resource I want to show you is ETS. This is not a database that we purchased. It's available for free, and it's not listed in our database A to Z resource, but I do have it on a couple of our library guides that deal with instruments, and also the link is here in the slide deck, so you could just click on it. We'll go to advanced search. This has more than 25,000 standardized tests and research instruments all the way back to the 1900s. And the user interface looks like it might not have changed since then, but that's fine. It's got some oldies but goodies in here, and they're instruments that have been around for a while, so they're well validated in many cases and resourced. In this case, I'm going to just look for a topic, eating disorder. Click on search. There are a number of instruments that we've talked about and seen already. I have not seen this one. If you want an instrument from this database, you just check availability. There are a lot of commercial resources here as well, so you'll see publishers listed and whatnot. But in this case, this looks like it's just a book. ETS does not provide the item for you. If you wanted this book, you would check Dragon Search and just look up cognitive behavior therapy. That's our discovery tool to see if it's something that we owned. Because of time, I'm not going to demo that, but if we didn't own it, it would be pretty easy to click on ways to request the item. And more than likely, I want to request this through Easy Borrow because it's a book, and I do know they have this particular volume in regional libraries, so you can get it fairly quickly. So questions about ETS, I know I went through that pretty quickly, but short on time. But if they're not questions, let me wrap this up. I just wanted to mention a couple of tips for locating tests and reminders. So remember that you want to search for your test by its official name, but also any acronyms or abbreviations, because that's often how it's listed. If for some reason you're looking for the author, but the resource that you have doesn't have up-to-date author information, that's also something you can Google. And then if you find the author's affiliation, just check that website for contact info. If you're searching for a topic and you have too many results, remember you can limit your test search by field to help narrow it down. Too few results, you can always look for your topic with broader terms or using synonyms or related terms for this subject. And let's see, I'm going to skip over that for now. Just wanted to mention that the slide deck includes other resources that I didn't go into, and we've got many, many more in the library for finding instruments. So if you need any assistance, make sure you reach out to the librarians for that. And I included links to the library guides that we have that focus on assessment and tests and measures. So if there aren't any questions, I'm going to stop sharing. And let's see, turn on my video. Okay. So any other questions? I appreciate your attention. And if there aren't any other questions or comments, have a great day.